Finance Minister trying to allay concerns within the CBEC. But remember, the CBEC has called for a protest day on the 30th. Let's see if they will continue with that or not. Now, tax issues will take centre stage when the Finance Minister presents his budget next week. KPMG survey of around 750 representatives across industry shows that an overwhelming majority of respondents expect big relief on the personal tax front. Majority of respondents also believe that the government will reduce corporate tax rates in this budget. To take us through these and other highlights of the survey, we're now joined by Girish Vanvari, the head of tax at KPMG in India. Girish, thanks very much. As I just pointed out, a majority view is that there will be reduction both in corporate tax, personal income tax, though nothing as far as the minimum alternate tax or MAT is concerned. But if I were to ask you for specifics, what is the sense that you get from the survey in terms of the expectation of a reduction in corporate tax, as well as what the government could do when it comes to personal income tax?
So I think there are two things. First of all, on the personal income tax front, there's a widespread belief that this 2.5 lakhs will go up. There's a widespread belief that this 2.5 lakhs should become 3.5 to 4 lakhs, so that at least some inflation adjustment, which has not been done for the last 2-3 years, happen. So clearly there is lots of expectations building up at the personal tax front. But what I really debate in my mind is that the idea is to get more and more people in the tax base. So by increasing the slab rates, would actually people get out of the tax base? So is there some innovation required here? Rather than the slab rate going up, should you introduce one more slab, say of 5%, such that you give some relief to individual taxpayers? And besides that, what people are also expecting that deductions like ETC should be going up, housing deduction should be going up, TTA, which is for saving bank account interest, that should be going up. Lots of reliefs and lots of things which are in relation to slab rates is a popular expectations as far as individuals is concerned. There's also a very popular demand that standard deduction will come back. So people at the individual level are expecting some goodies to come their way. At a corporate level, there was a promise made to go down to 25% over 4 years. 1 year has gone away, nothing has happened. People are expecting at least 2% cut will happen this year, and a roadmap to go down to 25 will be determined. Now, if you look at other countries like UK, US, Brexit, Donald Trump policies, everywhere the tendency is to get jobs back into their respective country, and for that the tax rates have to be competitive. So enough and more is spoken about these two things happening, and really what the government will do with the FRM, FRBM, and now the demonetization benefits which are there is something one will have to wait and watch as to how this whole thing pans out. But lots of expectations on both these fronts.
Yes, lots of expectations. What are the expectations as far as the GST is concerned? As we were just watching, there's a battle on between the CBEC with the government over this issue of the dual control mechanism. But that apart, do you expect the Finance Minister to give a clear indication of the 1st of July rollout as far as the GST is concerned? And related to the GST, for instance, do you expect any change in the service tax rate, given the fact that as far as the GST regime is concerned, service tax is expected to be 18%?
I think GST is a very tricky one. Clearly the intent is to get it down in July 1, October 1, lots of talks around it, lots of progress made. But can one definitively say it will happen? There are so many parties involved, so many states involved, center involved. How much will that pan out is anybody's guess. But the intent is to make it happen on July 1, latest October 1. Now let me tell you what the issues on GST in the budget will be. Do you tinker with the rate to increase from 15 towards the GST rate 18%? One thing. And how do you budget for the year? Do I budget GST for 9 months, 6 months? Do I budget service tax excise for 6 months? And how will these moving targets actually fall into place? Because having something in the middle of the year can make the budgets go vary. And even if GST happens, say on July 1, there can be some disruption, like we saw demonetization, leading to some parts of economies getting derailed. Imagine if everything became GST on one day. At least I see chaos and confusion for a couple of months till everything stabilizes again. So how does one factor in all this? I actually don't envy the decision makers on this. It's going to be a tough thing. But yes, people are expecting least amount of tinkering in indirect taxes because GST is on the anvil. And I'm hoping the GST rules, now the agreements reached between states, some part of that happens in this budget session so that we make progress.
Okay. You know, one of the questions that we asked in the poll that you conducted, Girish, was whether GAR will be implemented from the 1st of April 2017. The government today has issued clarifications with respect to that, saying clearly that yes, come 1st of April, GAR will be effective. But do you believe that they suitably have allayed apprehensions that investors may have had with those clarifications?
Actually, first of all, yes, the clarification says GAR will be implemented. That's one news. And that's a disappointment because many people were hoping that GAR will get deferred because after demonetization, people wanted more time to recalibrate their business plans and recalibrate their models and not be saddled with one more law which can create uncertainty. Having said that, the three elements of GAR are very, very important. The first element is what happens to treaty investments, especially as far as FPIs, FIs are concerned, and really whether SAR will override GAR and whether LOB will override GAR. And there are questions on this in the clarification, and let me tell you the confusion that has got created. The questions actually say that if there is SAR, special anti-avoidance rule, that doesn't mean GAR should not be there. It's a prerogative of domestic laws to have GAR, and GAR should be there despite SAR, which means again that issue is open. Second, it says if treaties have LOBs and if the LOBs are not sufficient or not adequate, then clearly GAR should be applicable. Now, what is this adequacy of LOB? Let me give you an example. Let's say if I make a 10,000 crore gain investing from Singapore, and if I only have expenses of say around 2 crores, which is more than 200,000 Singapore dollars, can one say that LOB of 2 crores is not really adequate in terms of 10,000 crore of gains? All this can lead to a lot of confusion and interpretations. So really the clarifications which have come on GAR, SAR, LOB, if they were sharper, if they were more conclusive that, you know, if you comply with LOB, GAR is not applicable. If you are complying with SAR, GAR is not applicable. That would be a happy state of affair to be in. Now let me give you the clarification on this treaty jurisdiction, like FPI, FI. If you have an SPV, then GAR should not be applicable. Now I understand if you have an SPV for non-commercial or rather non-tax reason, for a genuine commercial reason, then GAR should not be applicable. But I have to demonstrate, no? That what is non-tax reason. I have to demonstrate why I am in Singapore or not in Netherlands or not in France or US. That demonstration can lead to interpretation issues. So, you know, what I felt, though, directionally they are good, but they should have been sharper so that there is clarity. It's applicable or not applicable, not led to discretion. There are some positives also. And the positives are on these investments, and investments have been expanded to include rental income investments, interest income investments, dividend investments. Great. And investments are also like grandfathered, bonuses will not be covered.
that of course. Sure. So good news as far as grandfathering is concerned, but some grey areas continue. But let me end then by asking you, Girish, as far as tax buoyancy is concerned, because the poll very clearly shows that demonetization is expected to boost income tax collections. A whopping 82% who were polled believe that yes, it will boost income tax collections. What is your own assessment of tax buoyancy as the government puts the budget together?
No, I put the GDP and the tax buoyancy together. If demonetization and GST have to happen, GDP is going to roaring up to 8+%, because things will become in the normal economy and that will lead to higher tax collections. And that's the results in the last 2-3 months also. Tax collections have been very good. So if everything falls into place, GST comes into account on July 1, that along with demonetization should really spur the GDP up. What are the concerns? The concerns are only the oil prices. The concerns are external factors. How will Europe recover? How will US rebound with Donald Trump policies? If you just manage these two external concerns, India is back on the growth path. GST has to come first. So I really think one can be ambitious in terms of GDP growth and in terms of thereby enhanced tax collections. And if you do little bit measures to really get money more in the hands of the people, one can make sure that you could spur demand and still be within the FRBM Act.
All right, Girish, we will have to leave it there, but we'll check in with you come the 1st of February when the budget is in fact unveiled. That's the KPMG survey for you ahead of the budget on what the expectations are from taxes. Time now for us to head into a break, but coming up next up.